Morning, everybody, and welcome to our Friday How to Take Over the World session. My name is Mark, and I'm hosting you for today. I hope it's all been a productive week. It's nice to, I think we've actually had a very good week. It's payday week, so everybody should be relatively happy. Let's jump straight into it. Trying to get you going this Friday, just because I heard it on the radio yesterday, and I thought it was quite cool to kind of revisit it. So Shoma Josie, the John Cena song, and there were just a couple of things that stand out for me about this particular song is one, it is you have one life, live it, think big. I think we're so good at being very conservative in terms of how we think about life. So go big, think big, and think beyond South Africa. I mean, I think there's something very cool about a kind of South African artist who manages to crack an international scene. And if you ever want to go and sit on if you ever want a bit of a feel-good session, you can go and Google the Shoma Josie and Kelly Clarkson show. It'll put a smile on your face. I'm 99% sure of that. What else has happened this week? Oh yes, so we want to really just talk a little bit about a reminder of our purpose, because it's something and I have been speaking out a little bit. So when we run this slide, we basically talk about this concept of access to finance and access to markets. I mean, Anna and I do chat about this value proposition, but what does it actually mean in a practical sense? And I just want to take these two photos. So for those of you who are on the WhatsApp group, you'll know that there is a beauty spa that we've rolled out in the Richards Bay area. These are just some photos of some of the youth that have joined and started that particular business. And kind of if you think back to what does it mean about access to finance and access to markets, just flicking back to the slide for a moment. So what did we do there? We helped them raise the capital for that. So there was money that was used to set up that site. We used our knowledge of enterprise and supplier development initiatives to be able to access that funding. We got the help get the business plan in place. We then went and helped them with the recruitment side of things, and then obviously the reporting and the communication that goes with it. And the next step is obviously helping them to ensure that they can actually get access to clients, which falls under the business development side of things. So this really just gives you a sense of what it means to do access to finance, access to markets, similar projects with Blossom, similar projects with the likes of Solana Energy, which is kind of our new big one that we've been working on this week, or the last couple of months, in fact. But I mean, for those of you who know Bernard, he posted something on Twitter or whatever it was the other day, and he asked the question, if you took the marketing manager for Unilever, which is kind of the biggest marketing brand in the consumer goods brands in the world, and you take a small business marketer, like what are the things that differentiate them? So the problem when you are a small business marketer is you're constantly having to try and think, how do you disrupt? How do you stand out amongst the big brands? If those two people had to swap roles and you were basically a small business marketer placed in front of the Unilever ecosystem, Unilever world, you would basically have access to the top people in terms of design. You would have access to the top technology. You would have access to marketing budgets. People would kind of be falling over themselves to keep you happy because they know that you can unlock all of that social capital and budgets that effectively mean that you can, whether it's attending a conference, whether it's marketing spend, whether it's strategy sessions, etc. We often talk about whether or not we really want to play in the agency space. And one of the problems is that unless you can secure some of the bigger projects and bigger brands, it's very difficult for you to stand out, and you're constantly kind of fishing at the bottom of the pool, and there's very low barriers to entry, whether you are a small business consulting marketer, small business, even accounting. Everyone can be a bookkeeper. It's not hard. But what is it that differentiates you? So constantly work on what is the value proposition and try and work your way up the value chain. Just in terms of stuff we've been working on this week, and I've done quite a lot of stuff on BusyMed again. We did the advert that's gone into a full-page advert, which has gone into the Pharmaceutical and Cosmetic Review, and there's a two-page, double-page spread of editorial that's going in there as well. Camrynne has been rolling out marketing for the SME.tax Rosebank launch. So this was a new one that was put up, a new video that was put up using another female entrepreneur, and we'll be rolling out a couple more over the next couple of weeks. Jess has been involved in putting together some of our internal marketing collateral, so you'll see them on the social channels at the moment, and I've been quite happy with what has come out there. AMS is still carrying on doing some really nice stuff on the dynamic body technology side, and Anae has said when she's back, we're also going to have another refocus session around this. So if you've got any bright ideas, let's chat and let's see if we can kind of onboard a couple of the clients there. Just in terms of what it is we've been working on, this is very much similar to what we had last week, but just an overview that everybody's got plenty on their plates and lots to keep us going. Big lessons from the previous week: relationships are everything. I think for those who were on the Solana call yesterday, I mean, it just struck me, we started doing work with Ahmed nearly 4 years ago. And that relationship has just built out to the point where it became Blossom, it became a Machle, it then became the Solana project. So make a point of actually investing in those relationships on an ongoing basis. What are we watching this week? So I don't know if any of you, I mean, some of you played around with easy equities accounts, but we've been looking at what's happening on the Cape Town Stock Exchange. So there's, some of you might know the Obvest story, where you can kind of buy a share in a game lodge or a fractional share in a game lodge. You can go and have a look at it. It's, there's not a hell of a lot of activity, but some interesting things that are happening there. There is some action on the energy crisis. So some changes were announced on Monday, looking at making the energy system a little bit more productive. Transnet, this matters to everybody because basically Transnet is one of the largest state-owned entities, and they have everything from ports through to rail, through to road infrastructure. If Transnet works, South Africa works, and they actually managed to turn around from losing 8 billion rand last year to a 5 billion rand profit. One of the questions, obviously, and then there, if you look at that interview that's on MoneyWeb, they basically say, while they're on a profit, the challenge is still getting cash in from government and government suppliers as well. Interesting one. A number of the think tanks are now reporting and starting to become quite optimistic about South Africa Inc. So whether, if you just look at the coverage, a lot of people actually starting to say that South Africa in the next 12 to 24 months is actually going to be quite a good place to live. Obviously, there'll be a lot of noise going into the elections, but a lot of people starting to say there are signs of a turnaround. Tourism is picking up nicely, and for all of those who are driving cars, the petrol price goes down next week. So those are the kind of things we're watching this week. Anae, did I miss anything?
I don't think so. I think that was quite a mouthful. Thanks, Mark.
Fabulous. So then with that, I believe Jess and Camrynne are co-presenting today. So Jess, Camrynne, over to you guys.
Thank you. Let me just share the screen. Good morning, everybody. I hope you're doing well on this fresh Friday. We decided to do something a little different this week and mesh our topics into one main topic, titled The Dynamic Duo Design and Copy.
One of the most popular debates among creatives is whether the design comes before the copy or vice versa. Truthfully, it's a little bit like the chicken and the egg theory. No one knows which comes first, but many have their own perceptions, ideas, and preferences. As someone who has worked as a copywriter, I personally prefer being given the design first so that the appropriate copy can follow. Similarly, as Jess is a designer by profession, I'm sure she would prefer to be given the appropriate copy so that she can match with the design.
Either way, this is a collaborative effort and should always be treated as such. In every creative team, the designer and copywriter should have an ongoing relationship whereby there is an open dialogue and an opportunity to give insight and suggestions. So first things first, what is a designer? What is a copywriter? And what do they do? A designer is the person who visualizes the project at hand and brings it to life in an illustrative, visual, and creative way. They play around with different fonts, colors, shapes, images, and all that fun stuff to allow your brain to retain whatever information they're trying to convey.
A copywriter is the person on the team who is able to convey the necessary information in a written way by using their words to entice the audience. They ensure that their wording is clear, concise, and able to reach their target audience. So why are these two jobs important? Well, in the world of marketing, both of these jobs allow one's business to flourish in the digital world. With everything going online and the increased usage of social media platforms, one needs to implement both design work and copywriting into their business strategy and marketing. The designer creates the graphics and videos that you share with your viewers, potential customers, and communities, while the copywriter provides the designer with the appropriate wording to make their design make sense. For example, this graphic that was released by Nike wouldn't nearly have as much impact as it had on the world without the copy that accompanied it. For some background, Colin Kaepernick took a stand against racism within the sporting industry and spoke out about his firsthand experience with it. This advertisement went on to win the award for Outstanding Commercial at the Creative Arts Emmys.
Similarly, some designs just wouldn't make nearly enough sense or nearly enough of an impact if all that it was during the creative process was the copy. Take this advertisement from Nescafe, Cafe, for example, for those who live on coffee. While we all understand what the statement means, the advertisement is boring and doesn't really grab your attention. But when paired with the incredible graphic design, you can see it really for those who live on coffee, as the image is displaying a house on a coffee bean, which not only grabs your attention, but also brings something a little lighthearted to the mix.
So, as you can see, it is vital that design and copy go hand in hand, and that neither should be prioritized over the other. As previously mentioned, the dynamic duo is often compared to the chicken and the egg theory. There are 5 different methods as outlined by Uptown Studios, which we'll now be analyzing.
First up, we have the egg method, where the design comes first. Have you ever seen a template on Canva or Google where the design is great, but when you look a little closer, everything is in Latin and you have space to edit your own copy? Well, this is just a pure example of the egg method, where someone generated the design and left the copywriter to their own devices.
The next method we must consider is the chicken method, where the copy comes first. This is when the copywriter will deliberate the medium that they need to use and how many words will fit best in that space. By doing this, the copywriter creates copy that the designer will then be able to utilize when designing.
The next method to consider is the horse method, and that is when the client supplies the copy. The copywriter should only be checking for grammatical and spelling errors with this method, as the client is quite obviously happy with the content they've supplied. Here, the designer will design around what the client has given as a brief.
The next method is the cart method, and that is when the designer designs the graphic first, and only then does the client supply the copy. This isn't a very popular method and isn't very often used. However, when it is used, the copywriter will only be called on to do small edits like grammatical and spelling checks, as well as cutting down on the word count if needed.
The next and final method to consider is the horse, cart, egg, chicken method. And that is when all of the above is combined into one. This is the most collaborative of all the methods, and in my opinion, the one that should be used the most, as it allows a joint effort from the copywriter and the designer who make up the creative team, and the clients that they're supplying these projects for. This method will allow the creative team to openly discuss and dissect the ideas and generate content in a proactive way by including the client so that they don't miss any instructions.
There are many methods of collaboration for you and your creative team to choose from. It is up to you, trial and error, open communication and dialogue to discover which methods work for you and how you can streamline the creative process.
Now, we're no stranger to the phrase, teamwork makes the dream work. And even though it may be somewhat cliche, it's cliche for a reason. Ensure that your team operates in the most efficient way possible to build a great reputation for yourself and an even better name for the company that you are working for.
As it's a Friday and the weekend is a time to rest and get ready for the next week ahead, I'll leave you with a quote by Henry Ford. Teamwork. Coming together is a beginning, keeping together is a progress, working together is success. Thank you and happy Friday.
Collective applause. Oh, well done, guys.
Yeah, that was cool. Well done. Nicely done, ladies. And I think you know, even yesterday when we were looking at some of the stuff for the Sharks, you know, we were trying to knock off some of that stuff for the Sharks. You know, I went to, I was kind of bouncing between meetings and WhatsApp ping pong with Jess, and, you know, just trying to, I thought I knew what I wanted, but I couldn't put it down in words, and just going and bringing in an extra sort of, you know, set of eyes and to look at it. Immediately we had a completely different approach to it, and I thought the stuff that came through was great. So yeah, I mean, I'm a content person. I write more than I design, but you know, there's both have both have their place, and I think they both add to it. And I think that if we keep building out these skills, we can put a very valuable value proposition together for clients. So I'm very happy with that. Nicely done, ladies. Anybody else got any thoughts, comments, complaints, or criticisms?
I think something that's also cool about this, especially with like, and now I can't remember, I think it was the egg method. Like, people forget that just because you have an initial idea, it doesn't mean that it can't change. So often we've worked with people and then they're like, no, but we don't want to restrict your thinking. So they already have this expectation of what they want, but they're so scared to communicate it because they don't want to direct you in a certain way. But when you then come with like a new idea or another idea, they're like, no, but this was not what our expectation was. So I think also communicating to people, just because you give someone an idea of your expectation doesn't mean that it's going to restrict their thinking. Plans can always change and it can adapt, but I think communicating as far and wide as possible as to what you're expecting can align an outcome a lot better.
Yeah, and I know that we kind of stuck record on this, but that whole like onboarding process is so critical when you bring on clients to actually have a brief. I think it's impossible. I mean, and they will know, we have this piece of copy that's going around at the moment. It's been going around for 6 weeks nearly. And you know, we just can't meet in the middle on it. And you know, because they don't understand where it's going to be used, or they haven't thought about where it's going to be used, we end up being in a position where they want one thing, that, you know, they want to fit 1,200 words into a 600-word piece, and it must just fit. So, you know, one thing we've actually gone back with is with the, you know, to turn it into an infographic, because what they're asking and what we're providing, you know, it's just physically impossible. So yeah, absolutely. I think that was a good prezo, and I think it's got given me a couple of ideas from my side as well. Any other comments before we end the session? Cool, then that is it. We will check in with everybody during today. Please, guys, just a reminder, Nay is on leave next week. I can't supervise you all, so please make sure you know what you're doing. And if you need her for input, please grab her before the end of today, so that she can do it and not have to constantly be checking her phone and there being crises to deal with next week. Alrighty, so with that, everybody have a fabulous Friday, and we'll chat then during the day. Cheers, everybody.
Happy
Bye.
Friday.
Bye.